Hello and welcome to Forest Focus Live. Thank you very much to everyone for coming. I'm really struggling with this mic, sorry. Great to see you all. Please welcome to the stage a European Cup winner, a former England international and a Reds legend, and the nicest man in football in Garry Birtles. And our second guest, a familiar face, a former Forest player, a great golfer, a lovely bloke, Lewis McGugan. Good to have you with us, gents. We'll start with Garry. I haven't spoken to you for a while. How are you feeling now the season's over? Are you relieved that we're in the Premier League? Were you disappointed with it all or very happy?
Obviously very relieved. It just put us all through the mill yet again, though, right till the very end of the season. We just don't want to see that every season. You know, it's not healthy for anybody. I take 5 tablets a day, and I think I'm going to have to double it to 10 if it keeps going on like this. There's a lot to be done, I think, in pre-season, and if they get it right, then we could improve. We could go, mid-table, but it's got to be done right pre-season without a doubt.
Do you think it's still one step at a time, Lewis? 17th this season, 16th next season, with something to build on and live to fight another day?
Yeah, I think when you're in the Premier League, any season that you stay in the league, you're always trying to progress, and you don't want to get carried away with yourself. And I think that every single fan will probably think the same. Probably from the owner's eyes, that slow progression probably isn't good enough, and probably the amount of money that he's put into the football club and continues to put in the football club, he won't want probably that slow progression. But I think we've got to find that balance in between there. You can't get too carried away yourself. It's the hardest league in the world. Everyone wants to be in it, and we've got to feel very privileged to be in there. But we also know how hard it is and how unforgiving it is. And again, if we can stay in the Premier League next season, I'm sure everyone will be very happy.
When we were losing games, you'd sometimes text me in a rage, Garry, about goals conceded, team selection. Yeah.
No, going on that point, I think you have to look at the template for Fulham, Brentford, even Bournemouth. They came up, they've stabilised, they've progressed a little bit. Bournemouth slipped a bit this season, but the others have done all right. I think it's the first season, is it, when all 3 who came up have gone back down? And I think people predicted that. I thought Luton were unlucky. I think the injury problems they got were too much to overcome at the back end of the season. But it's possible we can improve if we get the right signings. I think Nuno deserves a pre-season to prepare for next season. I think any manager who comes in halfway through, no matter what team it is, deserves a pre-season. And if he gets it wrong, then you can criticise a little bit, because he's had that time to get things right.
What do you want to see different from Nuno next season? What were your frustrations with him, and what did you like about him by the end of the season, Garry?
I think when he came in, there was positivity. We got on the front foot. It's baffling for me, because we should have beat Liverpool, we should have beat Man City, we should have beat Chelsea. We were so unlucky. And all their managers said very similar. Some of the decisions were disgraceful. But then we play Luton twice and go ultra negative. Bring our best players off. Brighton away, they had a totally decimated squad. We left our best 4 players on the bench and lost 1-0. You can't do that. You have to look at that and say, right, that was wrong. You have to be blunt and say, we could have beat them. I mean, Jonathan Pearce, who works for the BBC, he's a big Brighton fan. He lives in Brighton, and he says, you'll never have a better chance to beat us because we haven't got a team. And we were just majorly negative against them and lost 1-0. That has to change. The mentality has to change. When he came in, we won at Newcastle, Chris Wood's hat-trick. There were really good moments, but then it just reversed, and we went just back to that negativity of trying to not lose a game instead of going to win it. I think that mentality has to change. It's baffling that we played so well against the good teams, and we played Burnley a couple of times, and weren't overly impressive against them. Sheffield United, when we beat them 2-1 early in the season, wasn't brilliant, and it was just lucky at the end of the season we played them, to get those 3 points. So, yeah, I just hope that the pre-season build-up is going to be, very important for everybody at the club. I think the person in charge of recruitment has got to be given the opportunity, along with the manager, to bring his players in and do it his way. If you've got too many people in the background bringing different players in, it's going to clash. Let one person decide what he wants, who he wants, and then let's try and get those players.
We'll come back to recruitment. I just want to pick up on what you said there, Gary, around the way we played against the lesser in inverted commas teams. It's not an arrogance thing, Lewis. It's not a fear thing. Is it a mentality thing that we raise our games against the top teams and then we don't perform as well against the middling teams and lower teams?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Gary, the key word is moments. We've had a lot of good moments in the season, but moments is not enough. We always turn up the whole time that we've been in the Premier League in the last 2 seasons. We've always turned up against the bigger teams, especially at home, and we've come out and played and really shown a good account of ourselves. But the big games and the ones where we've let ourselves down is the teams around us. And when you're in the Premier League, like I said, it's so unforgiving. You have to take advantage of the teams where you feel like you can get 3 points. And unfortunately, over this kind of 2 seasons, we haven't done that, and that's a big thing that we have to improve.
Is that something you found in your career, for both of you? For Lewis, like you would have played, did you play against Man City away in the Cup when we won that? You raised your game for that one. Is that something that all players do?
Yeah, of course. Cup games are a little bit different because they're one-offs and anything can happen on a day. But I think when you're playing games week in, week out in the Premier League, it has to be a privilege, and to be able to play in that league and play against the best players in the world and the best teams in the world. So I think the players, I'm sure the manager will make sure that it's not a case of we need to up our game for this team. We have to be front foot and at it from the get-go, whoever we're playing. And that will be a big thing. I'm sure the manager and the players will want to try and change this season. It won't happen overnight, but I'm sure there's progress to be made.
And you obviously raised your game a few times, Gary, to win a couple of European Cups. You beat some, top sides like Liverpool. You won big finals. Is that a mentality thing? Is it a momentum thing as well? That these things can snowball, and we hope we kind of see that with Forest next season.
You have to take that era out of the equation because it was totally different. What we're seeing now is a totally different game where there are so many backroom staff. It took me by surprise when I saw when Man City won what they won. They got about 100 backroom staff on the pitch applauding the players on. I don't know about you, but we had one physio, one trainer, and that was it, and we got on with it. But I just think mentality sometimes, there are too many people telling players what to do now. You can't run so many yards. I mean, look at Rodri at Man City. For goodness sake, we played 140 games in 2 seasons. He's moaning about 41. Poor lad. He must be absolutely exhausted. He really must. You have those people in the background saying to the manager, well, he's run that many yards, we can't do that anymore. He asks the player how he feels. Would you like to have a rest? We never wanted a rest. I think that's half the problem in modern football now. There are too many people putting their oar in, giving their opinions, and it can get all muddled up a little bit. And I think you have to have strength right at the top, and that has to be Nuno. He has to be the man in charge. Don't accept second best. You go and do what you want to do. You're the manager. You choose the players. Be given the opportunity to choose the players, and then we might just get a bit of continuity. But I think we've done well to survive the last couple of seasons with the amount of players we've signed, with what's going on, the points deductions. Man City is still the luckiest team in football history not to be punished as yet. All the little clubs, get punished, but the big clubs don't. And that's, And the other thing is, why was only Wolves voted for VAR to scrap it? Why didn't Forest vote against it? with all the decisions that's gone against. That's another story, but I think the preparation now for this coming season has got to be so much more professional than it's been before. Somebody has to say, right, you pick what players. There's got to be an A-list of players you want. We might lose Murillo, we might lose Gibbs-White, and then you have to accommodate that, and you have to, plan for that and try and get players in to replace. But you have to do it early, because if you leave it to the last minute, it'll be the same as the last 2 seasons. We'll be right on the edge of our seats till the end of the season.
If anyone's got any questions about VAR or anything, like I said, just there's notebooks passing around for the second half. Hopefully everyone's moving them around to drop your questions in. One of the things Garry said there was interesting, Lewis, about the way the game's changed. I mean, you've only been finished less than 10 years, and now you see more coaches, set-piece coaches. You didn't have people telling you how to take free kicks. What do you make of the rapid evolution of the game, especially in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's incredible. I think with a lot of things in life, times have changed, and we have to kind of move with the times. I still think there's certain things in football that should remain the same, but unfortunately, other people have got involved in that, and that changes across time. I know for a fact that I think it was when Manchester City played Luton, they turned up with 2 coaches, 2 team buses, one with the players and one for the whole of the staff. So that just shows now the change in how many staff are involved on day-to-day basis at these top football clubs. And to be fair, I think some of them come in and bring good ideas, but again, I think they have too much control over the players and how much input they have and how much times they want to train and what levels they are. They have that much authority now that they can pull players. Sports scientists can pull players out of training, pull players out of games, and unfortunately, I don't agree with that. But I think that's that's how football is now, and that's how the game's going. So hopefully, we can find that balance within the staff and within the manager. At the end of the day, the manager should always make the last decision. It should always be down to him, and I think if you have that. And if you look around at the successful clubs, I think even a lot of going off in the background, you can still look and see the manager. The final decision lies with him. So I think if we can keep that and have that with Nuno going into the new season, given that pre-season, given that opportunity to shape this squad, I'm sure we'll look forward to a better season.
What do you think Brian Clough would have made of the way the game is now around, there's not really managers, there's head coaches, like Lewis says about sports scientists pulling players out. Would he have adapted to that, or would he have stamped his foot and said, no, I'm the boss?
No, he would have adapted to anything that was going on now, because he was that good, he was that intelligent. He was. People think he was a dictator, he certainly wasn't. He was just so savvy. He knew what every player did, what made them tick. He knew who to put an arm round, who to bollock. And it was just a delight playing with somebody like that who took all the pressure off you when you went out on the pitch. Your mind was clear. That was the most important thing. When you went out there, you believed you were the best. He always said, respect the opposition, but you're better than them. Even the great Liverpool side who couldn't beat us for 2 years. And that was the mantra that he gave us. And to go out on a football pitch when you've got that in your mind, that nothing matters apart from you going out there as an individual within the team ethic, it was absolutely brilliant. And, it's changed so much now. It baffles me when I watch international matches and there are England players coming on as substitutes and you've got somebody with a clipboard telling them what they've got to do. They're an England footballer, for goodness sake. They don't know what to bloody do when they get on the pitch. What are they doing in the England squad, for goodness sake? It's ridiculous. They put too much crap in their minds, too much in the head when you go out there. And it confuses you. It addles you. And, it's wrong. You need to go out there with a clear mind, with what you've got to do, not, other things. You've got to look after somebody else. It's just very baffling now.
Did you find that in your career, Lewis, where your best managers, you say Billy Davies, that's a bit of a hand grenade with Garry, but that is it frame of reference? Yeah, I know. What was the phrase Billy had for each player? A clear frame
of reference.
Yeah. Is that what the best managers did for you as well? Made it simple?
Well, I think football is simple. It always has been simple, and it should always be simple. I think the problem is now, as Gary alluded to, there's a lot of outside people coming in to try and complicate it to make themselves sound better. But it's a very simple game, and hopefully we can kind of keep that and not get carried away with what everyone's trying to put onto this game. So I always think the best managers keep things simple. Players know exactly what they're going to do. Players know exactly what their role is in the team, individually, collectively, and you go out there and you perform. If you don't perform, you don't play. And I think that's how it should be. And hopefully you can try and block away this outside noise, what's out there. More so now with social media and the way the world is, it's a lot more harder for the players to do that. But again, the job is to play football and to go out there on a pitch. So I think if this new generation of players can feel that and come into games and come into training and just concentrate on my game, concentrate on what my job is, hopefully I think we'll produce a lot better players instead of what's happening now. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of unnecessary talk and tactics, and as you alluded, set piece coaches, and it's just crazy. And hopefully it stops at some point and it doesn't keep carrying on, and before we know it, it's out of control.
Let me ask you a bit about...
Can I just say about the set piece coach? Why have we conceded more from set pieces than any other football club in the history of the Premier League? What's he doing? What's his job?
There's
something not right there. We actually scored a couple from set pieces, but how many was it? 23, 24 we conceded?
23.
23. Well, that's not bad. Better than I thought, actually. It's about... You mentioned Brian Clough. You have to go back sometimes to when I played, and Lewis would say the same. Brian Clough, the greatest player I ever played with, and I played with Brian Robson, people like that, John Robertson. He was the worst trainer you've ever seen in your life. He was the scruffiest bugger. He liked to fag. He went out for a drink. But, Clough's, what he said about him when we're in the final, we've got a little fat lad who'll turn Manny Couts inside out. And he did. And he was terrible in training, but he was a genius. But now it's all too regimented. It's all too pigeonholed. It's all right. I mean, everybody in this room has got a different metabolism. What suits one person food-wise or drink-wise won't suit the other. But they pigeonhole every footballer now, saying, you can't drink this, you can't eat that. I watch a programme called Place in the Sun. What a boring thing that is. But I'll tell you what, they used to drink alcohol in the first couple of series. Now it's orange juice and apple juice. What's going on in the world at the moment? And that's how it was in football. We used to go for a drink with the fans after the game in the Robin Hood suite. Now players can't do anything. I had a crap time at Man United. This is what crap time at Man United. Couldn't hit a bond or with a banjo, whatever. And we used to have fillet steak before a game, because that's what you used to have before a game. And the physio at Man United said that's the worst thing you could possibly have digestion-wise before a game. The fillet steak is so bad. I said, well, there's one spare. And I said, well, I'm having that bad a time, I might as well have that one. I had my best game for Man United, scored, we got man of the match, and I said, what are you going to say now? He said, what can I say? It's ridiculous how serious they take everything with individual players. They're putting things into players' mind, and players will believe. If you tell them they're tired, they'll be tired. They'll feel tired. It's just changed totally.
I didn't have a Place in the Sun on my bingo card for tonight.
Yeah, it's first thing in the morning. There's nothing on telly, and you just think, you flick through, and there, you got Jasmine Harmon and what's her name, giving it all that caper. I saw her in Surrey. Laura Hamilton, the one, saw her in Surrey in the nail bar. My partner, she was in the same, and it was Laura Hamilton in there. I couldn't believe it. She asked after you, by the way.
I only bought you one glass of wine before we started. Let me ask a bit about recruitment, Lewis. A couple of players, starting with the goalkeeper. It looks like we're trying to buy potentially Sam Johnston or a South American keeper called Carlos Miguel. What do you think about buying another keeper to potentially replace Sells, or do we need someone of that quality to to push him? Because it would be back to 2 number ones, really, in theory, if we got Sam Johnston, say.
Tell the truth. The biggest thing in a goal, any position, but especially a goalkeeper, you just need it to be calm. You need the players to know who the number one is. And you could see when Sells come in and the aura he had, the stature he had, the confidence he gave the back four, the confidence the rest of the team played. That's what happens when a goalkeeper comes in with authority. Now they're looking to possibly change it. I don't know why. I don't understand this constant look for this next keeper. That's the place you really don't want to change unless you really have to. But for what I've seen from when Sells has come into the football club, I think he's been brilliant, and I think he deserves the chance to now go and have again a big pre-season, be number one, continue to create that connection and then relationships with the defenders, and make sure that back line is very solid.
What's the biggest issue in the... Just follow up, Gary, on that. What's more important, having a top goalkeeper or a top striker?
Both equal for me. When we played, a goalkeeper's job was just to save your points. He was there to save, everything that was put in front of him. That's why Shilton was the best goalkeeper in the world. Couldn't come out and catch a ball to save his life, but he was the best I ever played with. Best trainer. He looked after all the goalkeepers underneath him, and Forest were lucky. I was with Hans van Breukelen the other week as well. He was the guest at, I think, the last game of the season. And what a goalkeeper he was. Now, a goalkeeper has to be able to ping the ball 40 yards to feet. You look at the Burnley keeper, how many howlers he made. And they're defending him. Oh, well, it's not his fault. Of course it's his bloody fault. It's gone under his foot and rolled in the back of the net. Who else are you going to blame for that? And that's because he thinks he's got to control it and then pass it 60 yards to the striker's feet. It's ridiculous. A goalkeeper's job is to keep goal, to stop people scoring. Shilton was the best. I mean, we had Hans Sagers, we had Mark Crossley. The goalkeepers we've had at Forest, we've been very lucky with. But now it's just totally changed. Goalkeeper has more touches than a striker now. They do. It's ridiculous. Souness was right. Don't let your kids be a striker, because the goalkeepers get more touches than a striker now because of the way the game's played. And it's wrong that, people defend goalkeepers for the howlers they make, because that's why Burnley have gone down probably. If he hadn't made so many howlers, they might have got 6 more points, they might have put a bit more pressure on. It's totally changed. And goalkeepers, we've had at Forest have been a little bit suspect, to say the least. But for me, we've got a Wanye who's, a walking injury problem. He's a terrific player, but he's never going to be 100% fit. You have to get somebody who's going to score your goals. If, like I said last time I did this, if Chris Wood and a Wanye get injured, we could be struggling. That's what happened for a period, and we struggled. Luckily, Chris Wood came good, and at the end of the season, we had a Langer who was our best creative player, more so than Gibbs White. You've got to get your priority positions very, very fixed in your mind, because if you don't, we'll struggle again.
Do you have a contrarian view, Lewis, about playing out from the back with keepers? If it's Edison or Allison, who's someone who's really good at it, or Brighton did it a lot, do you mind teams playing out from the back because it can even create chances, or do you think play low risk and don't concede?
Yeah, but I think you made the point there. Edison and Allison can do it, and that's the difference. They're trying to make goalkeepers do it who aren't capable of doing it, and they continue to make errors. They continue to bring more pressure on themselves, which then affects their main job is to keep the ball back out of the net, and it's just then a circular effect of just doom and gloom for them. Them top goalkeepers at the top clubs, they're there for a reason. They can do it, and they're very good at it, but that doesn't mean that everyone's got to follow that blueprint, and all of a sudden we have to now get a keeper that's got to play like Edison. Sometimes you can't get it. Edison is a one-off, Allison's a one-off, and if you can't find them, you have to have a goalkeeper, first and foremost, keep goals out the back of the net. That's his job. The rest is to come. If he can play a little bit at times, bonus. But his priority is to be a goalkeeper and to keep the ball out the goal.
I think Sells can do it. Did you feel sympathy for Turner because he couldn't do it? Did you feel a bit sorry for Matt Turner by the end or not?
But again, that's the point where I look and I think to myself, he's making mistakes. He's clearly unsettled. He's clearly not comfortable doing it. Don't keep trying to make him do it. It's when the ball was going back to him, the players, you could feel it in the stadium, everyone was anxious because they kind of knew what was coming. That's when sometimes you have to strip it back and go, listen, I know we want to play a certain way. At this point in time, I'm not comfortable doing it. You be a goalkeeper, and over time, let's get more confidence, and we'll try and drip feed it in. But what we seem to do with Turner is continually let him make mistakes. Next game, ask him to do the same. If you keep doing that, you're asking for trouble.
I think the keepers you mentioned, the two you mentioned, Liverpool and Man City, they can afford to do it because they've got better players who they can pass it to, who are more comfortable on the ball, whereas the rest of the Premier League struggle a bit. You know, they put the defenders under pressure. Man City have got players who will just accept it. If it's tight, any areas, very rarely make a mistake. Similar to Liverpool, you know, they've got Van Dijk and players like that, whereas the rest, the mere mortals of the Premier League, can make mistakes and do make mistakes.
Just before we go into the interval, I want to ask you about, you touched on Tyro a little bit there, Garry. What do you do with him this summer? Because we know how good he can be, and if we sell him, he's going to go and score 30 goals or someone. But if we keep him, he might get injured. So what would you do with him?
Well, I keep him without a doubt because we see what he can do. But sometimes you have to manage players. He just seems to be like a sick note. You know, he played 5 or 6 games, gets injured, he's out for 2 or 3, and that's where you start struggling. If he was at Man City, it would be no problem. If he was at Liverpool, you know, the top teams, because they've got replacements all over the place, you know, world-class players, where the smaller teams haven't got that replacement. And, you know, Chris Wood, because he's over 30 now, you know, he would be prone to injury a little bit. You know, he's one of the most honest strikers, you know, you'll see. But, you know, like everybody else, I've been watching the golf today. You know, Tiger Woods, 50-odd years old, is he? Something like that. He was 1 under, but all of a sudden he tired. You know, when you get older as a sportsman, you do tend to lose your mojo a little bit in any sport. You look at Andy Murray, you look at Djokovic now. When you get to, you know, they're not as good as they were 3-4 years ago. You know, it happens in every sport. You know, so you have got to plan for if he gets injured, if Chris Wood gets injured. That's it's always got to be the priority. A striker will save you from relegation. You can draw 40-odd games a season and you can still go down. But, you know, strikers are so important. I mean, look at poor Harry Kane. Goes to Bayern Munich, breaks all scoring records, and they don't win the title. It's just crazy, you know. It's
What's too much place in the sun? What about the value of a full pre-season, Lewis, as well? Like for Taiwo and Sangare as well. You know, a full pre-season for them, for Nuno, for other players that come in. What difference can that make from your experience of being a player yourself?
Yeah, massive. It's the most important part of the season. So much goes into pre-seasons, even more now. So that's where the team building comes in, the connections, the togetherness, the fitness, all of the above. That's where it starts, and that's where it's made. In terms of Taiwo, I've said previously, I think that he came back after the injury and he's just never really got going again, and he broke down a few times, and sometimes that can happen. He's not quite maybe coming back. He's maybe rushing it a little bit. Also, he's under the pressure of Chris Wood's the only striker. He needs to come back and try and help the team. And sometimes that can happen. And with the pressures of now of playing in the Premier League, sometimes players can come back a bit too soon. And hopefully, the fact that he can shut down and have the summer and maybe give his body a rest, it allows his whole body to really rest and have that resting period so he can shut his body completely down and not do nothing. And once he then comes back to pre-season, he can slowly build up that fitness, slowly build up that foundation, because that's the key. It's the foundation. It's not the fitness. Pre-season is the big about building your foundation as a player, because that then gets you through the season. When you go through the later months and your body's struggling and you're getting aches and pains, that foundation you built in pre-season gets you through. And there's always an old football saying that if you miss pre-season, you'll never recover throughout the season. You'll always be picking up knocks. So hopefully for him and again for Nuno and the whole team, I think it's a great opportunity for them individually and collectively to really put a stamp down and really get together, get something going and go bouncing into the season.
I think the thing with Taiwo last year that annoyed me, not annoyed with him, when he was back offing for a place in the team, they put him on the bench rather than starting him. Brian Clough would have said, right, if you're not 100% fit, he wouldn't have, he would have said, right, give me an hour. Give me as long as you can, then I'll carry off myself. They did it back to front. We waited till we were losing, then we brought him on. That's ridiculous. If you're on the bench, you're some closeness to fitness. So start him and say, right, only if you give me 45 minutes, he might put us 2-0 up. But he brings him on in the 75th minute when we're 2-0 down. That's back to front logic. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I don't know, is that the mentality that the backroom staff put in players' minds? That, oh, well, you might not be, 100%, we'd rather bring you on later. For goodness sake, give the player the opportunity to say, right, I want to play here. He should have the balls to say, right, I want to play, I want to start here. Go and see the manager if he's on the bench. If he's involved in that situation on a match day, he's on the bench or he's involved, he should be starting the game. Give me 50 minutes, 40 minutes. He's the sort of player who can put you 2-0 up. But to ask somebody to come on late on and get you out of the shit, it's impossible. David Fairclough, super sub at Liverpool, he did it on a professional basis. But not many can do that. It's difficult to come on and get involved, no matter how good you are, late in a game. Because the pressure's on you even more to get your team out of trouble because you are Taiwo. So play him. If he's there, play him. For goodness sake.
Welcome back to part two. Please welcome back Garry Birtles and Lewis McGugan. And welcome to the stage, Greg Mitchell. About 10% booze there, I think. And Emily Anderson.
Was that a boo or a woo?
Thank you for all the questions. Lots of good ones. Very much appreciate that. There's a few that came up a lot, but one of them is, should Forest not sell on the cheap and take a points hit, meaning they keep their best players like Murillo and Gibbs-White to push higher up the league? What do you think about that, Greg?
Aston Villa are thinking like that, aren't they, with Ollie Watkins? So it just depends, because I think they're going to come down hard on any team that does do that, but I don't feel like we have to sell either of them. If we're clever enough and we manage to get money for players like Worrell, who haven't cost us anything, and the fringe players, we can do it. But I do feel like June the 30th, there'll be this weird little transfer deadline day before the big one. So it'll be interesting. We certainly can't sell both. No matter what happens, we can't sell two of the three of our big players at the minute, and it'll be a shame to see either go.
Yeah, I think it's a big ask to sell all these fringe players. Personally, I still think Murillo might go. What about that from a player's point of view, Lewis? You start the season on -10, -8. You know you've got to win 3 games. Is it worth the hit or not from a player's point of view?
No, listen, you never want to start any season with in that situation. Hopefully, as Greg said, that we have to keep hold of our best players, and if we want to continue to push up to Premier League and become that team what the owner wants, I think we have to try and keep our best players. I understand sometimes the way the football works now and financially, there might be a time where you have no choice, but I'm sure and hopeful that the football club will do everything in their power to try and manoeuvre stuff so we can keep the best players.
What if we did have to sell one of them, Gary? Would it be Murillo or Gibbs White or Hudson-Odoi maybe? What would you do?
The problem is you can't stop players wanting to better themselves. You know, Murillo is, 21? I mean, he's one for the future. He can't head the ball to save his life, but what a player he is on the floor. You know, he brings it out brilliantly. I'd hate to lose him, but you couldn't fault him if he wanted to go and better himself. That's what every player or every person in life, you want to better yourself. You want to do the best for yourself. And I haven't got a problem with that. It'd be terrible to lose him. I'd rather keep him, I think, than maybe Gibbs White. But I think, talking about those two, if you've got those two on your mind about moving, then the recruitment has to be so good to replace them. Because if it's not, then we're going to struggle big style again.
What about PSR? I can't ask you about PSR. BBC employee.
I have no opinions on anything.
No. What about taking a points hit? You could have an opinion on that. Would you do
Yes, no, I don't like that idea at all, and I worry that if we're considered repeat offenders by the Premier League, they're going to go down hard on us like they have done on Everton. I think that we will lose Murillo or Gibbs White, and I disagree with you. I'd rather keep Gibbs White and get rid of Murillo, because I feel like Gibbs White is irreplaceable in that role, whereas we just need a real... He is!
What did I just say to him?
Oh.
Anthony Elanga was more creative. He had more assists than Gibbs White. They changed Gibbs White from... I mean, I like Gibbs White when he's on song, but they changed him from set pieces. You know, they put somebody else on that.
Give it the mic, Matt.
And I just think Murillo has got more potential at his age. Okay,
Right.
Here's the argument coming.
You take... Is this working?
Yeah, of course it is.
take Gibbs White out of that team and it is not the same Forest team. You take Murillo out of the team and you've still got a solid defence. I promise you.
You sure
that.
about that?
Yeah, thank
So if you take Murillo out of the side, what is our strong defence?
you. Well, at the moment, you would obviously have Bolly. You've got Niakate. You've got Omobamidele.
And
You've got Nico on the right. You've got Aina on the left. But who are you going to put in the Gibbs White position? We have nobody.
at the moment we don't know. But I honestly think he's very overrated, Gibbs White. I do. I'm sorry. Right. How many times has he cost us goals by giving the ball away, by flicking it and not holding it?
Because
in bad areas. I'm sorry. You've got to be brave there. You don't flick it. You don't try and do things. The Arsenal game early in the season, who gave the ball away in defence when Saka scored that great goal? Gibbs White gave the ball away. Nobody mentioned that. It was a great goal by Saka. I'm sorry, Murillo is a better player. He's got a better future than Gibbs White. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll agree to disagree, because I would keep Gibbs White over Murillo any day.
What about Gibbs White then from a number 10 point of view, Lewis? We were talking actually. We were talking before in the break, and was it me? It's me. And you were saying he needs to score more goals, basically, to be that top level elite player. Does he need to improve his shooting, or what is it?
Yeah, we spoke about it in the break, and again, I think that he's a very talented player. I think that he's got better since he's come to the football club, and he's a massive part of what the team tries and does. But we were speaking about maybe if he's going. I seen today that Newcastle and Chelsea are interested in Elise from Crystal Palace, and hopefully with that, Newcastle kind of move their attention towards that, and that kind of keeps them away from Gibbs White. But I feel for him to go to that next level now, he needs to start scoring goals. He needs to start getting to double figures. I think he does a lot of work, a lot of good work, assisting and really helping a lot of players around him. But I think for him to now announce himself and go to that next level for the team, but also for himself, I think as a number 10, he has to go and try and get double figures.
That was a nice, easy discussion about our players. So let's talk about Ibrahim Sangare next. A lot of people asking about
Tell
him.
the truth, Emily, now.
Well,
What we were whispering about earlier.
you spoke about him on Monday, so I should start with Greg or Lewis, really. A lot of people saying first season, Danilo, not so good second season. Chris Wood, slow first season, good second season. Do you think Sangare can keep that pattern up, Greg or Lewis, whoever's got the microphone?
I can't concentrate at the minute. That picture behind you, it looks like Gary Neville's looking over us, shouting at us. Got like PTSD. Sangare needs a pre-season. That's what he didn't get last season, and so many people have said it, but we can't write him off. He's a proven, very, very good player in that position in many other leagues. So it'd be mad of us to say we need to sell him and claw some money back, because we'd still be in the negative on it. We still wouldn't get it. So take the risk, roll the dice, see what a proper pre-season does for a player of that quality. We'll have some strong pre-season games against some good opposition. They will be able to see, they'll get all the data and they'll understand where he is compared to where he was last season. And he might just be the difference in that position. So for me, you keep him, you take the small risk, you've already invested in him, and see what happens, because he could be the difference.
Is it the pace of the league that you question, Lewis? Can he play to the pace of the Premier League compared to the Dutch League and the French League?
Yeah, I've had this conversation with numerous people about Sangare, and I think that we can all see that he struggles since he's come to the football club. I think if you look at him and what he did prior to coming, he's a big, imposing central midfield player. But if you look, he played for a team in a league that's very technical. So when you look at that league and you look at the players and the teams that he's playing against, he stands out straight away anyway. I think coming into the Premier League, I think the biggest thing what I've noticed as a central midfield player is he struggles to get his feet moving. He struggles when the ball comes in tight. He hasn't got that picture in his head. And that sometimes happens. It happens. You can't get the kind of pace of the league, the pace of the games, and I just think this season it's just been a bit too much for him. The financial outlay that the club have made and the investment they made in him, Greg's right. I think they have to give him a pre-season. We had this conversation about the manager and that we've got to give the manager a pre-season, so a player's no different. So I think we have to give him a pre-season, give him the opportunity to play and stake his claim. And listen, we could be having this conversation this time next year and he could be one of the players of the seasons, hopefully. But at this point in time, I think we can all admit that the jury's still out on him and he's got a lot to prove. But that comes with the territory of being a big signing, coming into a massive football club in the Premier League. And he has to take that on his shoulders, and hopefully this first season that he's had, he can understand now what it needs to take to play in centre midfield in English football, but also at the highest level, and hopefully he can use this time to adapt now and come back stronger next season.
How much of a transfer, whether it's success or a failure, Gary, from your experience, is down to luck, faith, patience? How much of that do you need from? Because you went to Man U and struggled, you came back to Forest.
Thanks for that.
I haven't mentioned that before.
I just got that out of my mind finally, and you bring it back up. Yeah, expectation levels are always going to be high when you come to the Premier League. Let's put it in perspective. When Drogba and players like that came over, they didn't nail it straight away. Bergkamp, the great players who came over. The Premier League is the hardest league in the world to adapt to for anybody in any position, and very few can do it in the first season. The stress of League Cups, of FA Cups, of 40-odd games, 38 games in the Premier League. If you're in Europe, it takes its toll. And you look at the French League, you look at the Dutch League. No disrespect, but they're not very good. They don't. It's not as intense. It's not as intense. That's why Mbappe, for me, he's got to go and prove himself at Real Madrid, because the French league is average, the Dutch league is average. The German league is become a little bit dubious, because look how many points Bayern were behind Leverkusen. It's the Premier League is the Premier League for a reason. It's the best in the world, and it's the most difficult to adapt to. And if you don't do it and you get caught out, like I think Sangare has at times, you don't get the time he wants on the ball like you would in the Dutch league or the French league. It's a lot more intense. It's closed down quicker. So you have to give players the benefit of the doubt sometimes. Danilo, for me, when he first came, I loved him. I think he's been reined in a little bit. I think he's got a load of ability, but he's been restricted into what he does positively. I think we saw glimpses of it at times, but when he first came, I thought, we've got a player here. And, it's difficult. I thought he was pretty decent back end of the season whenever I saw him. But midfield is so important in the Premier League. You ask any player, you look at the Man City team, you look at the Liverpool team, the creation in that area is so important. That's why Haaland scores all the goals, because the creativity he's got around him. That's why Salah scores the goals, because of the creativity around. And, when you go further down the league, it becomes more difficult to get players like that. But, I think if the recruitment's right this season, I think we can have a good season without a doubt.
Just one more for Lewis on midfield before we move on and throw it back to Emily and Greg. Is Mangala the big miss? Because you were a big fan of him. We had to sell someone, but is Mangala was he the best midfielder we had?
Yeah, in my opinion, I was a really big fan of him. I thought he was the only player that we had that would take the ball in difficult situations, take the ball on half turn, but the biggest thing is he'd always look forward, he'd always look and try and make that forward pass. And I think, unfortunately, in English football now, especially Premier League, we have a lot of midfield players that don't really like to play the ball forward. It's a lot of sideways and backwards. That's just how football is evolving now. And with Mangala, I think that he had them old signs of a proper midfield player, that he tried to make things happen. I think he was very underrated. I think over time he got more confidence, which then you start seeing a lot more to his game. But I do feel that he's been a real big miss, and he was a real good player for us.
Are there any players on the fringes we think should get a look in next season, and why? There's players written down here like O'Brien and Aguilera. Emily, anyone completely on the fringes? Dennis, Worrell, Omobamidele, I guess, was a bit sidelined.
I don't feel like Worrell's got a future with us. I think he's probably a very good championship centre-back these days. Omobamidele is still so young and he's developing, so I think he's got potential. He showed some real spark in the games that he played, but needs a bit more work. Dennis, not so sure. He comes across as a little bit lazy and he's not really done much since he's gone away. And who's the other one? O'Brien. Yeah, we talked about O'Brien the other day. I feel really sorry for him because he was a bright spark towards the top of the championship, and he came to us hoping to get some Premier League experience, and unfortunately he just didn't fit into the plan. So I feel like his time's gone, and I feel like we've moved on since him. So I guess out of that group of players, for me, the only one I'd want to look at would be Omobamidele, I reckon.
What was Billy Davies' clear frame of reference for you? What does he tell you? And what might Morgan be being told?
Clear term of reference.
Clear term of reference.
Yeah. Which version do you want? Yeah, I'll keep it quite clean. No, to be fair, when I was in that team, I was there to score goals and create goals. That was my job. Again, the conversation with Gibbs White, I had Dexter and Ernie in front of me, two fantastic strikers who scored goals. But again, my job was to try and back them up. I think you have to do that in any team. You want to try and be successful. You can't just pin it on the strikers and hope that they get all the goals. As a midfield player, attacking midfield player, you have to chip in with goals. So that was my responsibility in the team. But again, I couldn't do it with the players around me, the likes of Chris Cohen, Paul McKenna, Paul Anderson. They was very, very disciplined. They kept a very good shape, which allowed me to go and play and to get into the areas to try and affect the game. So like I said, we all had our own individual remit of what we had to do. It was very simple. We knew what our job was, but that was to try and get the best out of each individual. And I think through them, especially them first 2 years, I'm sure everyone has seen that we did that on quite a few occasions. So they were really good times. But again, I was very fortunate to have very good players around me to help me do that.
When the fixtures change attack completely, when the fixtures are announced, Greg, which teams would you like to see as the first and last games? Now Sheffield United aren't on the schedule. Which ones would you like to see?
I'd like Leicester at the end, so we send them down. I don't know, to be honest. I love an away game, first game of the season. Probably an Arsenal again, someone who's just a little bit rusty and they've been on too many pre-season games, making a bit too much money, and get one of the big guns straight away for me and go from there.
What about you, Emily?
Ooh, let's start at the Etihad, because they're always rusty to begin with, aren't we? Get that one out of the way, and I'd like to end at the City Ground. I don't want an away game. Did you say Leicester away?
Yeah, start away and then Leicester at home at the end.
Leicester at home at the end of the season. Unfortunately, if you know my household arrangements, that would be way too much stress for me at the end of the season. So I would, I don't know, Crystal Palace. That's where we usually play at the end of the season. Let's go Crystal Palace at home.
Ipswich away is a great night out as well, so I can't wait for that.
Most hostile away day, Gary, as a player, were there any intimidating ones?
The baseball ground. My goodness, that was hostile to say the least, because there was the crowd and there was the pitch just here. Yeah, it was, not the best. Anfield, of course, in their pomp, was a little bit dubious. But going back to Gibbs White...
Could you, like Derby away? Could you tell when like the Forest fans had took the pop side or anything like that? Could you tell when there was things happening?
No, because
in the crowd?
Everybody asked me, "Can you hear what's going on? Can you hear when they chant your name and all that?" We never heard a thing. It was just a buzz, a sound, because your concentration levels. I don't know about you, Lewis. It was just, you concentrate on what you're doing, and it was just a noise in the background. But going back to Gibbs White. What I'm thinking, I compare him with current players at the moment. No, in the England...
I thought you were joking.
In the England team. You see, this is what you've got to say. He's young. The boy at Man United who's in the England squad. That's the comparison you have to give at the moment. And, would you rather have Declan Rice or Gibbs White? You have to compare in positions who you'd have. And I just think he really has, I'm not having a go, honest, I think he really has, this season, if he stays with us, he has to step up to the plate on a really consistent level, because if he does, he can be a world-class player. But I think he's got to cut all the mistakes out, all the flicks here and flicks there. I think that lets him down.
Gary.
No, honest.
Gary.
I know what I'm talking about here.
I know you do, but... we need to move on.
Where to? Where are we going? Are we going to Hooters?
Oh God, I can't wait for the YouTube comments on this video next week. I won't be reading them. Back on track, hopefully. What about you, Lewis? Worst or most hostile away games? Millwall springs to mind for a few reasons, but I know a few players said Millwall away was never any fun. Was any a nightmare for you or not, away grounds?
Yeah, Millwall was never fun for anyone involved, I don't think. It was just one of them fixtures that you just wanted to get in, play and get out as soon as possible. When I look at one of the stories really in my career, my only red card in my whole career was away at Derby. So yeah, Colin Caldwell didn't speak to me for 2 weeks after that. So yeah, it was all in all. I'm from Long Eaton, so I'm right in the middle. So yeah, so I had people loving it and people hate. So yeah, it was. That's always a very strange place to go because there's a few familiar faces on both sides. So yeah.
You see, what we've got the problem in Long Eaton is we live in Derbyshire, but we've got a Nottinghamshire postcode. And that's a problem.
Yeah, we don't think about Derby, though, do we?
Hey, talking about Millwall, myself and Darren Fletcher, when we were working for Century Radio, we did a Millwall game. We were in the press area doing the commentary, and we got attacked. They jumped. The Millwall fans jumped into the press area, tried to get at me and Fletch, because we're the Nottingham Forest, reporters or whatever, commentators, and they had to get these idiots out, Millwall fans out. It was wonderful.
Did you tell them what you think about Gibbs White as well?
Gibbs White wasn't born then.
Right, I need to find another question. What about, a few people asked it, we've discussed this on the podcast, but a few people have asked it. What about Shay Adams on a free? Gary, what do you make of him as a striker?
Shay Adams, a bit inconsistent. I think you've got to go in the Premier League for somebody with proven quality. I think it's so difficult being a striker in today's football because you're isolated for so much of the time. Even Haaland, you watch him sometimes, he has 11 touches in the first half of a game. It's so difficult, and you can get bored very quickly being a striker in today's football. So I think you've got to look around. I think you've probably got to look abroad more, rather than in this country. I think there are players out there you could get in. You need the right people in recruitment to get those players. And you have to really work hard and go everywhere to find somebody who will suit your setup, suit your team, suit your squad. And I just hope we do that, because I sat here last season saying we need to sign a striker, and we didn't really do it. And, it nearly cost us. So I think, tick list, striker, quality striker, spend the money on that if we've got the money to spend, and, then build from there.
One of the questions here, Forest have got just one player at the Euros. Will this be an advantage at the start of next season? And will we see fewer signings, Greg, maybe? A bit less chaos? Will that give us an edge in the transfer market?
Yeah, we spoke about it the other week, didn't we? And we said kind of 6 to 8 players. I think that's quite sensible for Forest. Very sensible for Forest. But who's the player at the Euros? Oh,
Matt
right, yeah,
Sells.
so that's not going to be like a dangerous one for us. But, it should be okay. It's more about not selling than not buying for me. We could get away with just being a little bit more sensible, a little bit less gung-ho. I'm really excited about that guy from Benfica, the recruiter who we've got, and he just sounds like he's done fantastic things for them. So I love that we've gone down that route rather than, letting the owner's son away with the checkbook, which nobody wants, nobody needs. And once we get through this financial fair play season, hopefully it'll be a lot more settled, and that's what we all want. Football shouldn't be governed that way, but it is. It's just the way we are. We all want to stay in the Premier League, so that's the rules that we've got to stick to. But hopefully, once we start developing these players that make big money for us, and not everyone can do what Brentford and Brighton have done, because that's what everyone's trying to do other than the top 4 now, we can just find those South Americans. And I feel like that's what we're going for, with the Mendes links, the Benfica guy, the recruitment we've done already. We've found those gems already that can not only just make big money for us, but create really good displays, and that's the main thing for us. So just stick to what we're doing. We're starting to find a system, and we've already seen little bits of it, and just keep that and calm it down. We don't need to be on that yellow bar at the end of every transfer window. Curfew's happened, that's it. Amount of money you're making, you think you could do more, Mike?
They're not my mics, but I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh yeah, you say recruitment. You could try and fix that. Recruitment is key, Lewis. You always say. Do you like this South American model of signing young players, a lot of talent, but not a lot? Well, no Premier League experience. Is it a gamble or is it sensible?
Yeah, I think any recruitment plan and any players that you bring in are always gambles, even the ones that you're pretty confident in, the ones that you see maybe week to week in the Premier League. There's still a gamble on them, how they're going to fit into the football club, how they're going to come, are they going to hit the ground running or not. I think the importance, I know we keep talking about the big importance of bringing players in and what's going to happen. I think the key for us, which it has been for the last few transfer windows, we've got to start trimming the squad. We've got to start getting rid of a few of these players that aren't going to be involved. I think, again, at the start of the show, we were talking about a goalkeeper. We've got 2 goalkeepers that aren't even going to play. We know that. And we're already talking about bringing in another one. You have 4 first-team goalkeepers, number ones. It's just ridiculous. So I think we do always talk about recruitment and bringing players in, but also the big job for any recruitment people and plan is to also trim the squad and get people at the right time. You look at all the top football clubs and how they run and the people in them places. Yes, I know they always get accolades for people to bring in, but they always sell players and get rid of players at the right time. And they always seem to be a good revolving door. And it's the time where we at the minute seem to just hang on. And the only thing what happens then is valuations just continue to dwindle. And I think, again, we say about these players that we might get rid of, and it's all right as saying, he can go, but you've got to get someone to buy them first. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to recoup the money or recoup any money. So I think there's in the recruitment plan itself, I think there's both ways. There's massive kind of reasons for why both sides have to be really good this pre-season. But again, I think we have to start thinking about the players that aren't going to be involved. Maybe it's time to move them on and see what the football club can get and try and reinvest it.
Right. Last 5-10 minutes or so, and then Aaron can do some fucking magical editing on this show. What's an acceptable finish or an acceptable goal for us next season? What place in the Premier League would you be aiming for, Emily?
Another season where we don't get relegated would be my first tick. So let's get above that dotted line. Obviously, we all want to progress, but we've seen from the past 2 seasons in the Premier League, it's really, I'm not going to swear, I was about to swear. Sorry, Greg's mum, I'm not going to swear. It's really bleeping hard in the Premier League. We know that. And I just think as long as we can progress from this season, I'm happy. Let's stay up. I'd quite like to get to the point where we're not panicking from about mid-March onwards thinking, oh, are we going to go down this season? Let's hope we don't get hit with another points deduction. Let's hope we don't have any more dodgy VAR decisions. So I'd say sort of at the top of the bottom half of the table would be brilliant for me.
I'd just like to see us be more proactive against the teams around us. We've mentioned this before, the Luton games, both of them, the Burnley games, Sheffield United, Fulham games, Bournemouth games. We play really well against the top teams. We deserve to win, but then we just go ultra negative. Let's get on the front foot. Let's be positive from day one. We went to Chelsea and won 1-0. We're unlucky against Arsenal. We can do well. We can compete with anybody in that league. We've seen that this season. And can I just mention one player we've not talked about? Aina. I think next season he could be one of our best players without a doubt. I think he was brilliant. They kept bringing him off, maybe because he was tired. I think it's the weight of those shorts. He got the biggest shorts in the world. But his ability going forward was just absolutely, for me, brilliant. I love watching what he did because nobody knew what he was going to do. I didn't know what he was going to do. Don't think he did. The opposition certainly did. And I think he could be massive for us in the right system we play next season. But, I think there's a lot of promise. But I just want the backroom team to be on the same hymn sheet just to get us started for the season with the right setup, the right squad, and get rid of the right players that we know have to go. It happens every season. Players have to leave. I found that in 1987. Cloughie got rid of me. Never told me.
sent me a letter through the post. You know, no, he did. That's how it happened in those days. I thought, you know, he might have just said, Gaz, you're a bit too old, we've had enough of you, or whatever. And it was FA Cup final day, I found out. And I went, I couldn't watch the football. I went and played golf at Woolton Park, you know, because I was that annoyed, you know. And that, you know, you've got to get things right this pre-season. And if we do, I think we can finish mid-table without a doubt.
Yeah, I think if we look at it, we've had 2 seasons now, and yes, we've had some really good moments that we've all enjoyed, but I'm sure we're all aware we've made a lot of mistakes, and we've got away with it. The 3 teams below us probably just being under par even more this season. I think that's helped us more than we've actually survived. I think the 3 teams below us have helped us. So I think when you look at it like that, and we've had that opportunity. If you keep on making mistakes, sooner or later you're gonna get punished. And I think we have to start making and seeing progressions now, not just the players, but also the football club and as a whole. We need to start learning from our mistakes. We need to start putting things in place and really trying to rise and make this football club better each by year. So hopefully we look and you want to be mid-table. I think that's where the chairman's probably got high aspirations of that, but we have to take our time. It's not going to happen overnight. But again, I think we really have to start making progressions now. And as Emily said, we can't keep being in these positions year after year and saying the same things and kind of nothing happening.
Comfortably above Thomas Frank and Brentford for me. You know, get them way down, and we should be fighting against the Crystal Palaces of this league. That's what we're clearly looking at, being that kind of, you know, stable, getting there for a few years, Crystal Palace, but then unlike them, pushing on after it, because they've never managed to take that extra step where I feel like the ambition of the owner, everyone around this club, the city, is about pushing on and eventually having a Thursday night in Albania or wherever we're going. So that'll do me.
You've had a few dodgy nights on a Thursday in Albania, don't worry, I'm sure. Sorry, Greg's mum. Right. You don't look very happy with me. Let's, just before we thank everyone, we'll just do the raffle quickly. Thanks to Temps for forgetting the prize. Yes, it's a signed Notts cricket bat, and there's also the T20 family tickets. We'll draw the cricket bat first, if you'll do the honours, Emily.
Lucky number 297.
Anyone? Oh. Who's going to the bar? Has anyone got 297, or who's going to the bar? No, just toilet. It's all right, you take your time. Anyone coming out of the toilet with 297? What? Yeah? Yay! Yay. Obviously. Gary, will you do the honours for the T20 family tickets for the weekend game against Durham?
$249.
Yes, yes, at the back there. If you speak to Temps or Simon Fotheringham, who's sat next to him, think you could sneak in with a beer, one of those chaps will help you out there. Where's the bucket? Oh, yeah. And the third prize is a car tracker. Is that right, Mike? Worth 500. It's not a car alarm. It's worth 550 quid, and if your car gets nicked, then they'll help get it back. It's from the podcast sponsors, Global Telemetrics. So thank you to them.
$300.
Check your pockets, fella, coming out of the toilet. Anyone got 300? Oh, you can't win twice. Oh, you can keep it if you want, yeah. Yeah, that's fine, yeah. Well, do you want to give one of them back? No? Fuck it, that's fine. Yeah. You made eBay. Oh, well done, Nigel. What? What did you win? Yeah. Or Murillo. Yeah. You won a car tracker. A what? Oh. Do you want the car tracker or not? We are. Congratulations on your dog tracker. No, that's it. Fuck off. Go on. Fuck off to the back. Yeah, I know, yeah. I think that's the perfect note to end on tonight. Please show your appreciation for Emily Anderson. Mr. Garry Birtles. Lewis McGugan. Greg Mitchell. Greg's mum is absolutely raging. Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you had a good night. Do appreciate your support, and we'll see you soon.
Big round of applause for Matt Davies.